d'appuyer sur le bouton enregistrer. Bon, bah Simon, je te passe la main
Ok.
pour lancer cette session.
Ok, ça marche. Hop. So, hello everybody. Today we are going to discuss about inverse problem solving and learning method. And specifically, we will focus on the problem of the reconstruction of surface currents from AIS data streams. And I'm going to explain what is AIS and how we can do that. So this work has been realized in the context of my thesis with EODIN, which is a society which is near from IMT. It has been founded in 2015, and the goal of this company is to exploit AIS data stream to produce current field on the surface. What is AIS? So it's a system which is used in maritime traffic all around the world by and which is now imposed to the professional users of maritime traffics. And the goal of this system is to avoid collision. So each boat sends information to his environment, and for example, his position, his speed on the road, and his heading. So the direction is of the boat on the surface. And you can have also some other information. For example, if the boat is doing a specific maneuver or something like that. And the idea is we are going to exploit this data stream to produce current velocity field. How we can do that? In fact, we have a linear system of observation. So some boats provide their heading, which is the direction of the boat on the surface of the water. And when you know the position of the boat and the information about the speed of the boat on the ground, which is the GPS speed, you have this system of observation. Typically, we can solve it in the least square sense by this estimator. But it's a hard problem because it's not a well-posed problem in the sense of Hadamard. For example, you can have no solution under this linear system. You can have an infinite number of solutions, and you also have the problem if you don't aggregate both on a pixel because you have no observation. You have to do an interpolation. So typically, to solve this kind of ill-posed problem, we had a regularization term, and we solved this kind of optimization problem. Here is an example. In fact, it's from a presentation done by Clément, and he focused on the conditioning of the linear system, and he shows that you have many errors when the system is not well conditioned. So that means that the eigenvalues, you have very high eigenvalues and very low eigenvalues in the system. So it's the case, for example, when you have storm, because all the boats are going to the same direction, and it's hard to solve this system. So we are going to use the a priori knowledge on the problem we could have. We know that current field are structured objects because if I show you an example of a current field and an example of a photo of a potato, for example, you will say that's a current field, that's a photo of a potato. There are structures in a current field. And we would like also to take account of maybe of the dynamic of the temporality of the data. So if you have an observation at times t, it must be closed in a sense which we will define to an observation that's at time xt plus 1. And the physicians have already the answer to those questions because they have evolution equations. For example, in the context of variational assimilation, you also solve differential equations such as Navier-Stokes, etc., to complete and to regularize your inverse problem. So we are gonna do that using neural networks. We're interested in generative modeling, which is a specific aspect of deep learning. And the goal is to learn underlying distributions of data and to explain them using latent representations. So the model we used for this works is a variational autoencoder. You can think as a classical autoencoder which trying to make a compression in the data. For example, you have a big image in a high-dimensional space. You try to project this high-dimensional space into a low-dimensional space and to reconstruct your image. But the difference with variational autoencoder on classical autoencoder is you introduce stochasticity and you want that the distribution on the latent space follow a certain distribution. So typically we would like it to be Gaussian, for example. That's why we add a Kullback-Leibler term that measures the divergence between the encoded data and, for example, a normal distribution. So the first term you've seen those equations is only the reconstruction terms, the classical reconstruction terms you have in an autoencoder. This loss is also a lower bound than data likelihood. So we can demonstrate that result easily using Jensen inequality, if you're curious. And the fact is, with the training a variational autoencoder in a class of image, for example, you will have this result, which is that the latent encoded variable will follow a Gaussian, for example, centered on the unit ball. So you know the geometry of your latent space. Those models have really strong properties. If you try to do interpolation in the space of image, for example, you will have something which in the middle should maybe will not be like the type of image you are focusing on. But using this kind of model in the latent space, you have a kind of linear structure. In fact, if those kind of network learns how to preserve the structure of the image using a class of deformations. So here an example, you have they use the dataset of bedrooms. They show it to a variational autoencoder, and they are trying to do an interpolation on the latent space. And if you look at the middle of the image, it's still a bedroom. Here I show you an example of loss associated to an autoencoder. It will be close to the variational autoencoder. And here is the kind of reconstruction loss you have if you try to encode a 1D seagull, such as EMT, seen as a 2D submanifold. And you can think that you can use the associated gradient flow, for example, to regularize an invert problem. We could do that. It's the kind of thing you can find in the paper related to what Ronan is doing in the DINAE framework. But here we'll restrict our representation to the latent space. So as I was talking, we'll only explore the latent space. We restrict to a low dimensional space to find representatives that can well explain our observations. So typically we will solve a gradient flow on that latent space. And one of the questions will be, is it dependent to the training? For example, if I have two neural networks that parameters the same image, can I, is it possible to have different results? In fact, the answer is yes, but the gradient flow will share the same zeros. They share the same zeros because in the space of image, they have tangent planes that are the same. So it depends on the geometry of the manifold that is embedded by the neural network instead of the neural network itself. The other question I'd like to show you just why is the regularization by dimension reduction efficient. In fact, here is an example. We could do a linear dimensional reduction using PCA, for example. And when you are doing that, you construct a class of invariant. So here I write for point X an associated set of functions that that maintains X under the projection operator. And if the dimension of the latent space is low, this set will be big. And you also have a set of orbit, which is the image of a point of this class under the deformation of this class. So the orbit under PCA will be, for example, the line or the plane or the subvector or affine space would be in the kernel of a certain application. In our case, we are no more linear, and the class of diffeomorphism is different. If you think about a classification problem, for example, if you would like to train a neural network to predict if there is a cat or not in an image, you also have a class of diffeomorphisms that maintain a prediction. And if you restrict to invertible diffeomorphism, you have a group structure. We call that Lie group, but that's the idea behind dimension reduction. We construct invariant. In the context of neural network, we have one problem maybe. This is due to the no convexity. Potentially, we construct no convex function with neural networks, so that's the difference with the linear case. We can have many optimas. So for two neural networks, can we have the same result? Not really. If two neural networks parameters the same space, the associated image of the solution of gradient flow could be different. So you can construct simple examples on R2 on the plane, for example, using a cost very simple, such as the norm. And when you apply diffeomorphism, you see by yourself. But there is a way to construct an algorithm that will be invariant in the setting by and would only depend of the mapped space. So to doing that, we will use the Gram-Schmidt algorithm. I will not discuss about that, but it will be very slow because it's not it's an iterative process which is not parallelized. Maybe there are some other process to construct orthogonal basis, but I don't know if we can do this with a well-parallelized algorithm. The other recall I'd like to do is about ResNet and neural ODEs. We discussed a lot about this kind of architecture last year. The idea is we would like to explain phenomena as in full Fourier assimilation as a solution of differential equations to take in account the time series of observations. And so we can explain, for example, if you have 8 days of observations, you can say, okay, the solution of my problem can be well explained by a solution of an ordinary differential equation. The fact is, by this assumption, you ensure the fact that an observation at time t plus 1 will be close to an observation at time t. And we are going to learn these equations. So to do this, we solve an optimal control problem, but we can do this easily using the PyTorch library, which are provided on GitHub. So in our approach, we are going to learn the generative models and the associated dynamical systems. To do that, we are going to use the observational term that I show you at the beginning, and we can complete the training of the generative model using external data, which will be good in a sense. For example, you have a lot of models, you can have also observation, you can have, but that are complete and that you think that are going to be good observations. And using this observation, you will have some gain in terms of approximation, in terms of the structure you would like to get in your field. For the dynamical system part, I made here a reference to an article that Said writes, this article is talking about how to learn dynamical systems which are partially observed, and the idea that we used in this job is to augment the state, the latent state, with some variables you never observed, but you try to optimize your loss function in the way that it explains your observations. If you think about a simple non-autonomous ordinary differential equations that is time dependent, you cannot explain this equation using only the observation. You have to add a variable, for example, time. And that's the case in the context of oceanography, because there are external forces that can act on your system, etc. So to do the training, we focus on the Agulhas current in South Africa, and in the year 2016, and we use 4 million of AES message. We also use an external representation, which is an assimilatic product that you can find for free on the internet. It's Gloris. And our dataset contains a time series of current field from 1993 to July 2015. So we don't show him the image of 2016. We use the time integration windows of 8 days, and we state that our latent space dimension was really low. It was 15 dimension, 50 for explaining the field, and we had a dimension 10 for the dynamical model. So in those dimensions, you can find a representation of external forcing, etc. So we compressed a lot the dimension of the problem. It was about 2,000 times bigger at the beginning, and here we reduce the problem of learning a low dimensional problem. So in the training phase, it's still a high dimensional problem because you have to learn the parameters of the neural networks. But if you try to generalize, you only have to identify the good latent space point. So it's a kind of low dimensional problem. And here are the results. We focus on 3 periods because those periods could have different dynamics. You can have a lot of storm during the winter. You can have maybe more stable dynamic during the summer. So we do 3 training. And here are the results. We show that we have a significant gain in optimal interpolations, and and we are sometimes at a level which is interesting if we compare to satellite altimetry and the Aviso product. There is an interest in learning using AIS because the altimetry product relies on the approximations and the field which are computed using altimetry product are divergent free. So divergent free means if you think about a fluid, something which will be incompressible, for example, or it's a kind of rotational. And that's not the case in the case of AIS. We compute the field using our linear system, and there is no more assumption. So we could have a gain in using AIS data to complement altimetry data. Here are an example of reconstructed fields. So you have Aviso on the top left, which is a satellite altimetry, an optimal interpolation which is computed in the top right, and on the bottom you have on the left a field which is computed using only AIS data, and on the right the training with external data, so the network has seen GLORIS data. We see that the current seems to be lower, and that may be explained by the fact that the GLORIS data have a lower distribution of current because they are assimilated using satellite altimetry. But we have to understand better. Here is a time series of errors. So to compute the error, we use drifters. I forgot to explain that. We don't know the true state, but we have access to a dataset of drifters. We consider that the true state, the only way one of the only way to validate the quality of our current. So we compute the difference in route in emissor or in square between the speed of the current field we produced and the drifters collocated in space and time. And here an example of an optimal interpolation and our approach using neural network for the validation. One of the other aspects we recently investigate is the use of latent space and nonlinear dynamics that we learn to do time interpolations. So we do the assimilations on the window of 24 hours, windows of a day, but we can try to interpolate the dynamics. And when we do that, we see that we have a significant gain on the drifters. So when you look at the video, for example, of the field, it's more convincing. You have something which is really smooth in time. We have some issues with this approach. The first is that variational encoder produce blurry image. Maybe in the future we will work on multi-scale models, or there are some approaches such as GAN which don't have these issues, but we have to think about that. We would like also to produce error. So, for example, to compute, we now have a kind of estimator, and what is its variance, for example. That's the kind of question we could ask. And the other fact, we would like to do Helmholtz decomposition on the decoder. That could be a way to assimilate divergent free field and jointly assimilate AIS data fields as we do here. So we could do fusions of data easily. And here are some references if you want. So the presentation will be available on Slack. So this is the end.
Thanks, Simon, for this presentation. we have time for question and discussion. Would anyone start the discussion? Would anyone have questions to Simon? Or comments?